Max Crosby is gone, traded for 2 first-round picks. Trent McDuffie leaves Kansas City for the Rams. He was traded for 4 picks. And the Broncos are locking up players like Tyler Badie and Jordan Jackson. With rumors swirling about Kenneth Walker, Romeo, Doubs, and more, things are heating up in Denver. Welcome to 5280 Playbook. I'm Kaysen, bringing you football from a mile high. If you love the Denver Broncos or the NFL, make sure to drop a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next video. Alright, let's talk football. So the biggest news we're going to go over today is Max Crosby being traded to the Baltimore Ravens. Crosby feels that he's done a disservice to the Raiders and to the entire organization, to the team, to the players, to everyone involved. And I just got to say this, only the Raiders would be able to get their best player to say I'm sorry for something that's not even his fault. In my personal opinion, I feel like the Raiders should be saying I'm sorry to Max Crosby. For one, they made him sit whenever he could have made some extra money later in the season. But for two, he had Geno Smith as his quarterback. Max Crosby bid his farewell to the Las Vegas Raiders in a 13-minute video. I'm not going to show it here or anything like that, but I'll kind of go over some information that you can see here on the screen. In Max Crosby's farewell, he basically said that he feels like he let the whole team down, the organization, and pretty much everyone involved, including the fans. And he was obviously disappointed, but he's excited about the opportunity to go on and play for the Baltimore Ravens, which I believe is going to be a really good fit for him. And it's an added bonus for the Broncos because the Broncos will no longer have to deal with Max Crosby because we all know that he was a terror. As Broncos fans, we understand how good of a player that Max Crosby truly is. And another person who really knows how hard it is to game plan around him is Sean Payton. Sean Payton went as far as to text Max Crosby, letting him know that he had a one-way private plane ticket to Baltimore, and he was very happy to see him out of the division. Max Crosby is a once-in-a-generation type of player. He's an amazing player, amazing pass rusher, and man, he was a terror for the Denver Broncos for years. I'm happy to see him out of the division as well. But anyways, let's keep going. We got some more great news out of Kansas City as they traded cornerback Trent McDuffie to the Rams in exchange for a first-round pick, a fifth-round pick, a sixth-round pick, and a 2027 third-round pick. The first-round pick they traded for was a 29th overall pick, which means that they would be picking one pick in front of the Broncos because the Broncos currently hold the 30th overall first-round pick. It seems like this was probably a trade to kind of cut down on their expenses because they're very negative in the cap space. This will free up some cap room for them to be able to go out and sign a few people in the offseason, which they had been linked to, signing one later that we'll talk about in the video, and that is Kenneth Walker. The Chargers had more breaking news for us. Khalil Mack was re-signed for a one-year, $18 million deal and will be returning to the Los Angeles Chargers for his 13th NFL season. You heard that right, 13th NFL season, getting paid $18 million a year. Need I say more? The Broncos have brought back running back Tyler Badie, defensive lineman Jordan Jackson, defensive back Devon Key, and outside linebacker Dondrea Tillman, all of which has been re-signed to one-year deals as exclusive rights free agents. There was some speculation about the Broncos possibly trading offensive guard Ben Powers to possibly retain some extra picks. And when this signing happened, it was very much evident that we all felt as fans that they were about to make a massive trade. However, that is not the case. But we did get Palczewski to sign to a 2-year deal. So that is an amazing, amazing contract for us. Palczewski came off the bench this year and played amazing. He was a really crucial part of our offensive line, and we definitely needed him. So the fact that we were able to re-sign him at a criminally low deal is amazing. However, the Ben Powers trade discussions were ultimately shut down pretty early on after this signing. Mike Kliss from Channel 9 News in Denver made sure to mention that Powers is going to remain a Broncos left guard, which is honestly pretty good news for us. We get to hold an offensive lineman. We're not going to trade him for picks, which I didn't really think there was a point in doing. Ben Powers obviously was injured a lot last year. However, he was amazing when we had him. He's just a really amazing guard that'll help protect our franchise quarterback, Bo Nix. So let's get into some of the rumors that have been circulating this past week in the league, especially for our Denver Broncos. We've got an update from Lucas Evans of the Denver Post letting us know that the Broncos have shown interest in Romeo Doubs. Romeo Doubs has played for the Packers his entire career, with last year having 55 receptions for 724 yards. His route running abilities were just phenomenal, and what's most impressive to me is the fact that he has such great hands and knows where he is on the football field at all times. But we can watch this highlight here. There's a long touchdown throw by Jordan Love to Romeo Doubs in the end zone. He catches it right on the goal line, and it was just beautiful. They show some replays here in just a minute, but it was just absolutely insane. Let's see here if I can fast forward it through a little bit here. This catch was just amazing. He's got his both feet in bounds, and he also brought his elbow down on the play, getting a touchdown. Really phenomenal catch. I would love to see him in Denver. Sleepers 49ers, has him projected to be a 3-year, $49 million with $30 million guaranteed. We do have some money for that. He would average around $10 million per year. With the Broncos cap space of around $30 million as of right now, he would be a bigger target to go after. However, maybe we can possibly restructure some contracts. However, it was already mentioned that Ben Powers is not going to be getting a contract restructured. I do know that the Broncos organization will obviously handle the situation very well. And if they really want to get the guy, they'll go do it. In the beginning of the offseason, there was a press conference held, and George Payton went on to mention that they would definitely be making a splash this offseason. So it definitely could be at wide receiver Romeo Doubs. And that would be an amazing pick. I would be completely fine with that if that was the case. Another player that was linked to the Broncos in the beginning of the offseason process was tight end TJ Hockenson out of Minnesota. However, they've been able to restructure his contract, so he's more than likely going to be staying with Minnesota this year. Changes are coming to Denver, specifically at the linebacker position out of the Broncos wire. John Heath wrote about how Justin Strnad is likely leaving the Broncos this offseason, which is a huge blow to the Broncos defense. The Broncos are also going to potentially lose Alex Singleton, who led the team in tackles this past season. And adding another linebacker will be huge for the Broncos this offseason. One of the names mentioned here, EJ Speed out of the Houston Texans, has already been re-signed. Alex Anzalone out of the Detroit Lions would also be an interesting candidate for the Broncos to go after in this year's free agency. Meanwhile, one of my personal favorite players, PJ Locke, is also likely headed out of Denver. PJ Locke has been incredible over the seasons that he has contributed to the Denver Broncos, and he did a phenomenal job taking over for Brandon Jones later in the season. So the Broncos could be potentially going after another safety in the free agency period. A big name safety is probably not going to be happening with Talanoa Hufanga and Brandon Jones still in the building. However, there is potential that a safety does get picked up in free agency or in the draft. And the last bit of news that really got me hyped up was Kenneth Walker potentially coming to the Denver Broncos. Kenneth Walker, as we know, was the Super Bowl MVP. He played phenomenal in playoffs, especially in the games when it mattered, such as the Super Bowl. Walker has always split carries with Zach Charbonnet, but it would be very exciting to see him potentially just be a single back. The projection here is that he could end up with $12 million to $16 million a year, and he's linked to teams such as the Seahawks, Broncos, or the Chiefs. Kenneth Walker is an amazing player, amazing running back. I would love to have him on the Broncos roster. However, I just don't know how big of a splash we're willing to make, and I really think the most likely outcome is that Walker will go back to Seattle. However, with Denver, Kansas City, and Seattle being the potential landing spots for Kenneth Walker, his deal will be pretty big and pretty large. I'm just not sure if the Broncos will be willing to pay him that much, especially when there's guys like Tyler Algier and Joe Mixon, who recently just got released from the Houston Texans, who has had a phenomenal career. However, he's just been sustained with injuries over the past few seasons. So there's a potential that Broncos could go after and get J.K. Dobbins and also bring in another back such as Joe Mixon. Benjamin Allwright out of the Broncos also mentioned that he doesn't think it's happening, and he suspects that he's going to be headed to the Giants, which is interesting because none of those were potential landing spots that were mentioned before. So maybe Benjamin knows something that we don't. All right, Broncos fans, that's all the latest moves, signings, and rumors for now. Free agency officially kicks off on Wednesday, but the legal tampering period opens on Monday, so expect plenty of action soon. What do you think will happen in Denver? Or better yet, what do you think is going to happen in free agency this year? Who's going to be the biggest signing? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And as always, tune in next time for football from a mile high. High five.